This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment mentor for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute, nor is it to convey professional, psychological, financial, or medical advice. If you could use such services, please seek them out from someone you trust. Now here is today's episode. Episode 43. And before I dive into today's episode with Michael, I want to remind you that Practical Profit for Psychotherapists, the online course, is now available. You can go out to the show notes to get the link for that, or you can go out to practicalprofitforpsychotherapist.com and it will direct you to the page to get it. This is for any therapist who is in the mental health field here in the US and you're wanting to gain more confidence in what do you even track for your business? How do you save for taxes? How much do you need to save for taxes? I have created a step-by-step guide along with templates to help you gaining more confidence in basic accounting skills. And if you choose to hire it out at a later point in time, you absolutely can, and you can do it with confidence. So again, I encourage you to go out to practicalprofitforpsychotherapist.com and sign up today. Use the coupon code DISCOUNT99, all one word, to get it for $99 versus the full fee of $197. That'll be available for the first 50 people who sign up, and then that discount goes away. Now here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. I am so excited about today's episode. I have Michael Spencer. She goes by a home energy purification guide. She is the founder of Let's Purify, an online coaching business. She's a home energy coach and a Reiki practitioner who helps soulful people declutter their homes on a deep level through a spiritual and practical process called home energy purification. She's a former mental health counselor with training as a modern-day priestess, which is cool. Michael brings a wide variety of expertise to her services. Michael is also the host of the Let's Purify podcast, where she shares inspiration, tips, and stories designed to help people get crystal clear about their relationship with their belongings and what they choose to carry with them into the next phase of their life. Michael, I am so excited about this conversation today. I know you and I were chatting just a little bit before I started to hit record. And I cannot wait till we dive into some of these topics about what you share, not only on your podcast, but what you do with your clients as well. But before we get into all those good things, tell me a little bit, or tell my listeners a little bit, how did you kind of get into this type of work?
Sure. Yeah. And it's so good to be here with you, Nicole. Thanks for inviting me on. And let's see. My background I started out in accounting and auditing, as you and I were talking about, and then I switched careers and got my master's degree in mental health counseling. And I was a licensed professional counselor. I had a private practice, and I was working with people, helping them to resolve trauma and also helping people who are awakening spiritually. And as I started doing more of the spiritually oriented work, I became more interested in energy. And in my own personal life, I started doing some purifying of my physical body. So I was doing some cleanses, and in that process, there was a lot of releasing of old emotions and old stuck energy in my body. And these cleanses had it's like some different yoga classes that we would do. And so it was really a holistic process. And what I noticed was that clearer my body became and my emotions became, the more I started noticing being bothered by the stuff in one particular closet and just the stuff in my home that just wasn't resonating with me. This stuff that I had been carrying around, from move to move. And I would just take all these boxes from one closet and then move into a new place and just put the boxes in there without really being clear about what I was carrying around with me and why. And so I launched into this process of going through every item in my home and making a decision about whether I wanted to keep it or let it go. And the shared objects, so I share a home with my husband, and those shared objects we eventually did together, but I just kind of started with my own stuff, the things that were mine to make a decision on exclusively. And it was the most liberating and freeing experience of my life. And yeah, it was incredible. And so I started calling it my home energy purification process. And it that name kind of stuck. And because what I was doing was not simply decluttering, I was doing a really deep level soul exploration of like, what do I want to carry with me and why? Why am I carrying on to this or carrying this photo or holding on to this old book? And the things that resonated and felt like they would serve me moving forward, I'm like, yes, I'm bringing this along for my next phase of life. And the stuff that felt, off, or it just felt heavy, or I didn't have a use for it, I just trusted myself to discern what I wanted to let go. And I did. And it was so amazing.
And I love that process. One, where the work you had been doing with your clients as a mental health professional, that spiritual piece of it, it's like that's one level of when we raise our self-awareness and we do soul work there. But now to bring it into what I call the stuff area, the physical stuff that we truly carry around. And like you said, like from move to move, or we just shift this box over here, it hangs in the closet. There is that energetic, which you talk about on your podcast as well. There's an energetic thing that goes with that. And so I love how you truly sat with every piece and where is that with me? And why am I holding on to this? And you got curious with it and you released it. And I know some of the work that I've done with clients when we've talked about the physical stuff, when we go back and actually look at it, oftentimes we're just really stuck, right? Both in maybe it's our professional life, personal life. We're like, oh, I really can't go anywhere. And then when you start to release physical things in your home and declutter, there's a whole different energy shift that happens.
Yes. And it's so fun connecting with people who immediately get what I do, because there are some folks that it's just not quite in alignment. It's just not connecting, and that's totally fine. And I'm like doing a little happy dance over here because it's like, yes, that's exactly it. And when we have these, if we think about the phrase as within, so without, and as without, so within, or as above, so below, the things in our home are reflecting what is within us. So if we've got these dark corners that we want to ignore or deny that they even bother us, we're ignoring or denying something within us. And so if we can gently look at what's outside and have some awareness of what's going on inside, whenever we get close to that, maybe we take that lid off the box and we notice a tightening in our solar plexus, or our heart hurts. I think that's one of the things I love the most about doing this work with people, is it gets to be this inner and outer process all at the same time.
Yes. When you first started to talk about that, it was giving me chills, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know in some previous episodes, we've talked about shadow work. And when you're looking in that dark corner, or opening up that box lid and looking below that, that external process really does mirror that internal piece of it. So yeah, this is just really cool. Very exciting. So share a little bit when you talk about, I understand what you mean, when you talk about kind of shifting the energy and moving. You've talked a little bit on your podcast too about kind of raising the vibration levels or changing that. Would you mind sharing what you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we all have an energy field that permeates the body and extends out from the body. And if you one of the ways that I love to help people to really feel that is if you are drumming or have a rattle or something, and you drum or rattle kind of close to your body, you can actually feel those vibrations from that sound tool bumping into your own vibration of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be a neat way just to get a sense of like, what does that feel like? And then we have our energy field, and we can have a vibration or frequency that we can notice. And if our vibration is high, we can tend to be have more resonance with maybe happy emotions, what we might describe as like lighter emotions. We can be more open to optimism, and so our thought processes might be a little bit more clear and hopeful, inspired. And this can be a really expansive place to be. So our energy fields might be feeling like they're getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Physically, we can just feel like in good, vibrant health, although someone could be experiencing an illness and still have a high vibration, which also helps with healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, with a lower vibration, we may notice that it's easier for us to get stuck in denser emotions, like a prolonged sadness or a depressed feeling. And I want to state very clearly that this doesn't have to be positive or negative. And
Mm-hmm.
as humans, we experience a full range
Yes.
of emotions and thoughts and physical aspects of our health or not health. And so there doesn't have to be a judgment of good or bad with it. And it can be really neat to start to notice, wow, when I have really negative thinking and I'm not feeling hopeful, my energy feels like kind of contracted. And I feel a little heavy in my heart space, or, just starting to kind of play with what that feels like. And then it's like, oh, well, what if I change my thinking or change my emotions? Because those, our thought processes and our emotions themselves also have an energetic charge with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start to realize how we can shift and change how we're feeling, how we're vibrating, much more proactively. We don't have to be reactive to everything that's happening outside of us. We can go, oh yeah, here I am interacting with the world, and I get to choose how am I going to come into this.
Yeah. And to tie that into when you're going through your things,
Mm-hmm.
I know you've talked about on, I think one of your more recent episodes, you were talking about kind of the decluttering piece of it, or going through your decorations for Christmas or whatever holidays. This is all part of it. So if you start to go through something,
Mm-hmm.
and whether whatever emotion comes up, like you're talking about, or whether that vibration is really expansive or more contracted, it's being aware of that and just noticing it and giving yourself permission to honestly feel it and move forward. It doesn't mean like, oh, I need to hurry up and throw all this stuff away because I don't feel good about it.
Right.
Yeah, it may be something where you're still holding on to something from the past and feeling sad about it. So maybe you need to grieve a little more before you let that go or move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. It really is about providing that spaciousness for ourselves to fully experience something. And particularly if there's been something or a group of some things that we've been pushing away.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of folks say, oh, well, that stuff doesn't really bother me. I just don't go in that room.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, well, then we're sort of cordoning off an aspect of ourselves. Like, what would happen? And when we talk about energy, so then there's some stuck energy, and then there's some resistance. And it's like, what happens if we address that? What could be freed up? What energy potential is locked in there that when freed, when explored, when worked through, could have this tremendous impact on your life, because now you're not holding that back anymore. You're not resisting it.
Yes. I love that. I've heard that as well, whether it's two people have come together, they're merging their things together and they're like, well, we just kind of threw it in a room and now we don't go there. or we haven't gone through any of those boxes. And then we start talking about a specific aspect of their life. And they're like, yeah, I'm kind of stuck in this, or I can't get that promotion I'm really wanting, or my business isn't growing over here, or I can't get that deeper connection that I'm really wanting with my partner. And like you're saying, it's like, well, what would happen if we went and we actually explored that? We took away kind of the off limits, scariness, the fear factor, whatever it is that's holding them back from going there. And when they do, it's like, oh, wow, the story I had created in my mind was much bigger than the actual thing was.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it really frees up that energy. And all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, now we're doing well. And this is going on. And it's like,
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do with people too is to help them warm up to, because some folks have spaces that they have not gone into for a really long time, and they can be pretty tender places. And so I'll encourage them to use all sorts of different techniques to kind of warm up to being in that space. One of my favorites that I've talked about on the podcast is knocking on the door. So if there's a particular room that we haven't been going in, I'll encourage people to what if you just every day, you just knock on the door 3 times, and you're just saying, hey, I'm going to be coming in there soon. So maybe you set a goal to do that for a week. And you don't have to go in the door. You don't have to put your hand on the doorknob if you don't want. And it shifts the energy. So anytime we're impacting the vibration, so by knocking on something, we're creating a different vibration. And then we're also letting our subconscious know, as well as the stuff in the room know, like, hey, I'm going to be getting a little closer here. I'm going to be coming in. And it's
love this process.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's so gentle and so easy. And then often people are like, oh yeah, I only needed to do that for like 2 days. And then I wanted to open the door. Or maybe it's longer. It's just honoring wherever a person is and providing this really supportive container that you can do this.
Yeah.
Like you've created this, whether by yourself or with a partner, or you inherited a bunch of stuff that you didn't want, you still created this on some level. So you can shift it anytime.
Yeah.
We're so empowered.
Yeah. And I love that you can walk alongside them and help remind them of these things and give them, sometimes it's like, well, let's just take that first step. And what would that be like? And because sometimes when we get in our own way, at least that's what I say to myself, it's like, well, I know I'm in my own way. And sometimes I do need a guide to really help me kind of go like, I have no idea where I'm going, but I know I want to get out of this. And they can offer things that if I'm so in it, they can just say one little thing like, well, let's just go knock on that door. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's so simple that I didn't even think about that.
Right.
And that's that beginning of the shift, as you're saying, both energetically and in your mind, in your heart. And it doesn't need to be a harsh push. And I know for many of my listeners, right, there's a lot of them are highly sensitive. And so there's a constant with our world that's it can be very chaotic and sometimes pushy. It's like you need to do more, be more, and all of that. And so the way you're talking about this is like, no, it's okay to do it in a way that works truly for you.
Right. Yeah.
Love that.
Gentle and creative and then it starts to get fun.
So share a little bit more about that.
Well, I love helping people to, if they are already on the spiritual path and they have practices like using crystals or using those sound tools like drumming or music or burning sage or Palo Santo. Like I encourage people. I remember I was chatting with a friend who was doing some decluttering, and she had this space in her basement that she just did not like to go into. And she sages her house every day. And I was like, oh, did you burn sage down in the basement? She's like, no. I'm like, oh, well, you could. Like, what if you did? What if you bless that space? Or what if you just allow that sage smoke to do its work? You know, that plant medicine and that smoke, like, wow, what if you just invite that in? And you can just feel it, you know, even in this conversation, like, oh, And, I have people, like if they have a favorite crystal that feels really powerful to them, what if you put that crystal outside the door or inside the door or on the box or in the bag, and just let it do its vibrational work for 5 minutes or 5 days, like whatever you need. It's just amazing, because then it starts to be this enjoyable spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, I have to declutter. Like, who wants to declutter? No.
Right. Well, yeah, even when you say that, to me, what came up was it becomes this inclusive process versus kind of the either or, us versus them. It's me against the boxes. It's me against the stuff. It's more just like, no, I can be with it and allow that to be shifted like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh.
It is. It's a very loving process. And the other thing that starts to get really fun is 95% of the time, it's probably closer to 100% of the time, folks tend to have hidden treasures among all this stuff.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this special thing from my grandmother, I totally forgot about it. I want to hang it up. Or, this sweater that I've been holding on to, I want to wear it. And I didn't even know it was in the back of my closet because of all this other stuff. So when we let go of the stuff that no longer fits, literally or figuratively, then it creates space for the treasures to not only emerge and come to the surface, but also be celebrated.
Yeah.
It's the best.
It is. And I like that example too, of like, something from your grandparents or something that oftentimes I know, because I've moved various times and I've marked boxes, and, a lot of times I can get a little overdoing on some of these boxes with, okay, it's got this, and this on, and there may be a couple things I didn't mark on it. And if I've left those boxes packed for, 3 months, 6 months, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to look inside that. It's like, oh my gosh. Like you just said, I totally forgot I had this. I want this out. I've had it out before and I forgot about it. So it's like finding these lovely little treasures and things that, as you said earlier on in our conversation, it then mirrors the inside, right? And so it is surrounding yourself with items that really do have true meaning to you, that lights you up and brings you a smile, versus like, oh, I've got to dust this thing again.
Right.
Got to do this all over again type of thing.
Yeah. And it provides this opportunity to circulate energy.
Yeah.
So when we've had those boxes that have been sitting for 6 months or 6 years or 3 decades, it can become stagnant and stuck in there. And it's important, in my opinion, to open that stuff up and just to see, like, what are we carrying around? And it's kind of the same, like when we start exercising and we really get our blood flowing, that there's something about circulating that blood throughout the body that's so healthy, because then if there's toxins and things that can be moved out of the body, that's great. And the same thing, whenever we open up our boxes and we dump out those bags and we start sorting through things, we're shaking up that energy, and we can let go of the toxic stuff, and we can celebrate and love on the treasures that we truly enjoy.
Yeah. I know in one of your episodes, and it may have been the one about the decorations, and you talked about, because this is bringing up as you were talking about grandmother stuff and shaking up those boxes and really getting that energy flowing, like the blood is flowing, that guilt can come up with, I inherited this thing or things, and I don't want to get rid of it, or I've been told I can't get rid of it, or it's been handed down, in ways to really work through that guilt or obligation piece that gets attached to the item. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about, like, kind of how you work with clients regarding that?
Definitely. I think one of the biggest things is, first of all, just to recognize that those family rules or those cultural or societal rules are not laws.
Yes.
They are not universal laws. They are not laws, nobody's going to throw you in jail if you decide to let go of a family heirloom. And you may rub people the wrong way. That's the thing that can happen. And I think there are a bunch of facets here. So my mind is all going in spaghetti directions. I help people to get really clear about what their values are and what they choose to align themselves with. And
there it is. That's it.
Yeah. And so if we come across an heirloom that just does not feel right, the first thing I help people to do is simply to admit that. Like, we don't have to decide what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to know where it's going to go or what's going to happen to it. You simply get to say, this does not fit for me and I don't choose to carry this with me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, okay. So once that part's done, and then we notice what's coming up around that. Wow, huge guilt, sadness maybe. Sometimes when we choose to let go of something that represents our connection to our tribe, it can be painful. It can be really scary. And we also we can acknowledge all of that and still stay true to the fact that this is not in alignment. And if something is out of alignment with you and you continue to keep it in your home, the energy of your home is then going to be out of alignment. And our home spaces are so vital. Like, this is the place where we get to recharge our batteries, where we get to rest, where we get to create, where we are with our families. So in my opinion, it's vital.
Yeah.
That the energy of our homes is so vibrant that it feels like a recharging station for us when we're in it.
I love that energy because, again, many of my listeners they're high achievers, but they're introverted, which the majority of introverts, right? We need to recharge. And if you're highly sensitive, your environments impact you, all the smell stimulations, and I know you know this, they impact you. So to me, it's like, man, you just talked about a home as a sanctuary. It's like, that truly is your safe place to go back and be like, okay, when I walk in, you just feel it like a nice warm fuzzy blanket wrap around you and go, I'm home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when we say, and so I also work with my clients around visioning before we do much of anything else. Like, what do you want your home to feel like?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will want their homes like, I want to walk in my home and it feels like me.
Yes.
And not the 20-year-old version of yourself or the 5-year-old version of yourself, like the adult, vibrant person that you are and that you're becoming. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So really, I keep going back. The word that keeps popping up for me is like giving yourself permission. Give yourself permission to say, it is okay for me to align with my values. It is okay for me to have this home that really works for me as this adult that I am, that I don't need to fit and morph into somebody else's expectation of who I should be, because there's a lot of shoulding that goes on for women.
Yes.
And breaking free from that and saying it's okay for me to claim my space and make it mine. So that I feel, like you're saying, like really I recharge when I go home and not more drained.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah. And helping people to tap into their own authority to make the decisions in their home.
Yes.
And, it's big. And especially if there has been, some type of enmeshment in families or, people taking over responsibility for each other's emotions, it can be challenging. And that, once again, the work with the external stuff in the home space, it can be so liberating because it's like, oh, this thing, I can't stand to have it in my presence for one more moment. It needs to go on the go pile. And to have that, it's just so liberating, freeing, opening to be able to say yes to what you choose to keep with you and no to everything else.
Yeah. I was smiling when you were saying it because I'm like, oh, I know she just went back into a memory there.
Right?
And
Yeah.
you hit it. There really is so much liberation in that. And
Mhm.
what I was thinking of too is you gain the confidence, right? It's empowering to say, I no longer want this in my home anymore. I'm
Mhm.
going to let this go because it doesn't serve me anymore. And when you do that, your energy, like you've talked about before, your vibration level begins to expand, and you can then take that out into relationships, again,
Mhm.
home life, professional life, whatever that may be, and do it in other places then. Because you
Yes.
gain confidence, that energy, that stuckness, that kind of keeping it, closed now has opened up more. And it's like, oh, I can do this. It's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah. So we do home energy purification work, right, in the home space. And then I notice myself going, oh, yeah, I just purified that.
Hmm.
Oh, I just made this other decision that isn't about the stuff in my home, but it is about the stuff in my life.
Yes. And that could be friendships. That could be working in a toxic place. And like, I'm looking for a new job now because I don't want to be in this toxic stuff anymore.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it has huge impacts. I
it
love
does.
that.
And the other thing I wanted to mention that I help people with, especially around these things that is when we get clear and we go, I no longer want to carry this thing with me, but wow, I still feel guilty and I still feel some sense of obligation that I should hold on to it. I help people to communicate with the object itself, which sometimes sounds really weird to people, and that's okay because it's all reflections of us anyway. It's
Hmm.
all that subconscious work. And so you can write a letter to
Hmm.
that object, you can journal with it going back and forth. You can say, I'm complete with you and I'm going to let you go. And what do you need, object? Where do you want to go? How do you want to serve in the world? And it's amazing the insights that people will hit on. And is that the energy of the object talking? Is it their inner self talking? I don't know. I don't really care.
Yeah.
What I know is that movement happens and new insights happen and forgiveness happens.
Yes.
And so it does, if people are open to being creative in the process and a little um, energetic, spiritual, woo, whatever you want to call it, the amazing things can happen.
Well, I was just going to say that's really powerful if you allow yourself to truly get curious, like what you're saying. That to me feels like it's a very full circle process. That if I know me as the person, I'm ready to release this object, that then to have whatever you're talking about, more like that inner piece of it come through the object as me getting curious and questioning and asking, that then it's like, okay, if there was anything else that I was not aware of, it can bubble up through the letter writing, through the exploration piece of it, so that it's like, okay, now I'm ready. Love that.
Yeah. And I work with people with ceremony and ritual too,
Yes.
for saying goodbye to certain things, releasing, maybe cutting cords if that resonates with folks. So there's so many things that we can do that all contribute to a healthy letting go.
Yeah, I love that. Michael, I'm curious, do you have a certain, I guess, process for yourself, or a certain, oh, what do I want to say? Almost a ritual in a way of like you do this, whether it's every day or every couple months, when it comes to kind of re-looking at your items. I know again, you've talked about more so with like the holiday stuff. And then paper, really creating habits around that, which I can totally need to revamp some of my habits around
Sure.
the paper stuff.
Yeah.
You have something that you do like on a daily basis that really helps you keep that energy flowing within your home.
Yeah. So with home energy purification, I consider it a process to help people to do that big declutter, like that big, like go through everything in the home or whatever they want to go through.
Mhm.
And then I also consider it a spiritual practice
Mm.
where once you've gone through everything in your home, and I'm talking like I looked at my appliances. Do I
Mhm.
want to keep this toaster oven?
Yep.
What about the art on the walls? What about this lamp? And then what all the stuff in the drawers, all everything. When you do that and you get to really fine tune your intuition, it's amazing. I can walk through my home, and I will typically do this when I clean. I would love to say that I clean once a week, and I don't. So I will do it when I clean, which is every couple of weeks. And when I'm putting things away, and even throughout, there are times when I'll just kind of tidy up, if you will. I will just notice. So I kind of have it's hilarious. I never use this phrase, but it's what I want to say right now. Like my spidey sense, like I'm just a little bit more heightened, a little bit more noticing, and I'm looking around as I'm putting things away, and I'm feeling, and is there something that's out of place? And sometimes I have a closet in my yoga and meditation space, and sometimes it becomes a bit of a catch-all. And so occasionally when I'm cleaning, I might pick a space to just like, let me do a little bit deeper clean with this. Let me pull some things out and reorganize. And it's amazing when I do that now, the freedom to let go, you know what? This needs to go. And I have a basket in my mudroom that is for things that need to go to the thrift store or things that are being donated to someone or given away. So that's there as that catch-all. And then, okay, every so often I need to make sure that I go to the thrift store or give that to a friend or whatever. So yeah, it's this intuitive noticing. And sometimes it's even around things like I love twinkle lights, like strings of Christmas lights. And so I have them in my kitchen. I have them in my yoga and meditation space, the space outside that room. And in my office where I'm doing more of my client sessions now, because all of my sessions are on Zoom. So I'm like, the lighting in here is terrible. I need some twinkle lights. And so even those things like that, noticing something needs brightened up or something needs shifted. And energetically, even my husband was like, it's so nice having those lights in here. I really like it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So for you, because you're so tuned in, it sounds like anymore with your body, but also your spiritual practice, that as you do any of the cleaning, as you go through the home, it's like you just stop and notice. And it's like, yeah, is this working? Is it not? And I love that. That becomes a daily practice for you in whatever manner that looks like. So,
yeah. And and then it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think, when you asked at the beginning how I got into this, truly part of what happened is it was so life-changing for me. And I knew I wanted to share it with other people. And I kind of ran out of stuff. And I was like, well, I still want to maybe I can hang out with other people while they're going through their stuff because it's so amazing. Just the joy of discovering something and, wanting to frame a picture instead of just having it in a box, or like, this scarf of my grandmother's, I'm going to wear this. Why is it sitting in this storage space down in the basement? So,
well, and it's funny as you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, working with you has a very different vibe to it than some of those, reality shows where they're like, okay, we're going to come through and clean out a whole room and then slowly go through it. But there's not a lot of allowing a true process with it. It's more of like a hurry up and get it done type of thing. Whereas what you're talking was like, man, it does sound a lot more exciting and fun to get. It's like you're going in a different exploration in a whole different way and giving yourself permission to be wherever you are with it. So I love this.
Yeah. I love helping people to come up with a system that works for them. And then part of what I'm doing too is providing that accountability and support in the process. And it really is it's just an opportunity, because I know some people really resonate with the word purge, and I can appreciate that word for what it is. And sometimes people really need to feel like they're getting some stuff out. And I like to be sure that there's a level of discernment with that.
Yes.
If we're purging and just kind of getting rid of stuff willy-nilly, it's like, well, we don't want something really special to get lost in the shuffle. And so it is a neat way to be mindful about it. And I do help people to have a plan and a process, because it's, it is a balance between the spiritual and energetic and okay, I actually need to have a plan. Like, where am I going to put this stuff before I take it to the thrift store? Do I know where my local thrift store is? Am I taking stuff to a consignment store? Am I going to sell stuff on eBay, or like, what's my plan for actually moving through this?
Yeah. And I like that too, that we hadn't tapped on that. But it's like there, yeah, you don't have to there's more choices than just doing the thrift store or the Goodwill store or whatever. There's a lot of different options. And I love how you help people create that plan before they're taking those next steps. That it's a full wraparound, basically coaching service that happens with them. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I know I could seriously have hours and hours of a conversation with you about this. It's like, oh, this is so exciting. This is so fun. But I know we need to wrap this up here. And so before we go, is there anything else that you wanted to add that I missed? And I want to definitely talk about, you've got a free thing for people that I'll let them know about. But is there anything else that you wanted to share before we go?
I think we've covered so much. So I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on the show notes, ladies, so Michael's website is letspurify.energy. And I will again have that on my show notes. And then along with her social media and her podcast, there'll be a link so you can go out there to iTunes for it. But she has a free clarity boosting questions for you to go out, and you can get that information again on the show notes. And Michael, I just want to say thank you so much, and sharing what you do, what it is, how people can really shift the energy and truly purify their homes, which also just really can change their life on all kinds of levels. It's not only in their home, but really does have a ripple effect in every aspect of their life. And I just want to say thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Nicole. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for listening. And if you are a psychotherapist wanting to feel more confident in fee setting, raising your fees, and having a better understanding of basic accounting for your business, then go out to practicalprofitforpsychotherapists.com and look at the new online course I've created. Until then, take care.